Criterion Collection has released these two films, I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, produced by Val LEWTON, under the banner of this single release. So we have two discs with both films on the disc. So we have one disc, which is the 4K UHD disc with both films, and then we have a Blu-ray, which also has both films. So actually two discs. It's not one of these situations where we have one disc per film, but we have two films on a single disc and two of such discs, but one being the 4K UHD disc and the other being the Blu-ray disc. And so when you put the disc in the machine, you're prompted to select one film or the other. And then when you press it, it'll take you to their supplements menu and commentaries, etc., which we'll talk about in a moment. But before we do, let me now turn our attention to the great booklet. I love this booklet. I'll talk a little bit more about the content of it, but it's a staple booklet, hurrah. And from this side, it starts with the I Walk with a Zombie part up to about the middle. And then you have to flip it because from the other side, it has stuff on the seventh victim, the essay and the write-up, and then it goes right into the middle and you flip it. So it's one of these great flip book things, one book to serve the double function of two separate films. I mean, I saw this there's a similar kind of thing that happened with an earlier kind of old school Criterion DVD release of two films of the lower depths. So it was really interesting, but I love it when Criterion does little playful things like this. This is great. But in any event, the other reason why I have removed the booklet and just am opening up to a certain page right now is to look at what it says about the masters, the transfer quality details with regard to each of these films. So it says here, and I quote, about the masters, I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim are presented in the aspect ratio of 1.37 to 1. These new 4K restorations were created from the 35mm nitrate original camera negatives. The negative of The Seventh Victim had large amounts of mold throughout. Digital restoration helped mitigate the damage, but there's still some mold residue present in the picture. The original monaural soundtracks were remastered from a 35mm safety composite fine grain for I Walked with a Zombie and a 35mm original soundtrack positive for The Seventh Victim. So this is great. You know, I don't have these on any other previous, say, a DVD or Blu-ray release. I was considering getting some of the Val LEWTON films. I was in the back of my mind, you know, maybe in my online shopping cart, but just or maybe on my save for later list or something like that, but never got around to it, not for any specific reason, but just never got around to it. But then ultimately, when I heard a little bit later about the news for the Criterion's release of at least these two films, they're not all the Val LEWTON films, but at least these two films, I was very thrilled. So I held off on making making purchase of any non-Criterion releases of any of the other Val LEWTON films. But I'm now in the neighborhood of wanting to catch up with the other Val LEWTON films that have been released outside of Criterion. But with regard to I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, oh my goodness, it's really great to see them in the Criterion Collection physical media fold, to join the ranks of other films such as, I mentioned the earlier film, the Jacques Tourneur and Val LEWTON produced film Cat People, which is at a separate spine number 833. But this is a great one to have, and it's a great double feature. And if you like this, and if you liked I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, there are some other great non-Criterion releases, which I might want to go to my save to later list and maybe put in my cart and purchase maybe a little bit later. But that's a story for another day. But in any event, yes. So my experience with the films that's very limited. So I don't have any strong background in, say, the release history of this or the home media release history of these films. So I can't speak to those terms, unfortunately, but I can only speak to my subjective experience based on how I saw the films before and versus how I see them now. It's, without question, I'm very much in love with how they look and sound here. With respect to The Seventh Victim, it made note of mold damage or mold-related damage, mold residue present. And I can't tell for the most part, and even where there might be some kind of blemish or some kind of seemingly damage, it's to my eye, it in no way disturbed my engagement with the film. I mean, on the contrary, I felt completely engaged and enthralled throughout. So nothing in terms of how I experienced what the Criterion release of this was. I'm speaking of the Seventh Victim specifically. Nothing I could experience nothing at all, nothing that took me out of the experience. So I was completely enthralled. So even where there's a note here about the Seventh Victim, it wasn't at all overly detectable to me to make any impression that would, to any degree, disturb my overall enjoyment of the film. So I am very, very thrilled and very delighted by this. And the work that went into this is quite astounding and very clear. And I mean, shadows are preserved, or I mean, that's the thing about these films is there's so much of light and shadow, and the stark difference between the two, but also how they merge and blend together. I mean, it's and there's a sharpness. There's also softness that needs to be considered in a lot of these shots as well. So it's really a lovely kind of a blend and mixture of the two. So again, to my own subjective and very limited capacity. And my eyes and ears are continuing to age and to weaken. So maybe I can only speak from my subjective experience, but my experience, as expressed subjectively, is leading me to be wholeheartedly pleased with the efforts that were gone into the masters that are the basis for this wonderful Criterion release of these two films. So I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim. And now, my dear friends, let us now turn to the supplements that are included with this package of two films under this single release from the Criterion Collection. So the supplements that are included with I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, respectively. So let's talk about them right now. We have the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc, and so the 4K disc has both films and the option to listen to the commentary or the audio tracks, because there are a number of audio tracks associated with the films. We'll just talk about those, but so you can listen to, or you can watch the films and listen to those, say, commentary tracks under the 4K UHD disc or the Blu-ray disc, so your choice. And then for the supplements, what you need to do is the supplements themselves won't be found on the 4K UHD disc, but they will only be found on the Blu-ray disc. So that's, I think, per customary Criterion habit. Criterion tends to do, or does that for all of its 4K UHD and Blu-ray releases, which is fine. I really like that setup. So, so for the purposes of today's discussion, my dear friends, I have the Blu-ray in the machine, so we can collectively talk about the audio or commentary tracks for each of the films and also the supplements. Please note that it's one of these great moving images, montage type Blu-ray menus, and so with music over the soundtrack. So thank you. I'm so sorry to offend the eye, but I've just blocked it out for purposes of just in case not wanting to offend YouTube copyright gods or algorithm-based AI copyright infringer tracker, whatever the case may be. I'm not sure, but just to be on the safe side, I've just blocked it out. So I apologize for my terrible and very amateurish YouTube video making skills, lack thereof, I suppose. So I apologize for that. But let's talk about what we have here. So first of all, let's talk about the commentary tracks or the various let's say audio options that are available. So first of all, let's select I Walked with a Zombie. And so we have the movie and then chapters and then subtitles. But we also have two extra audio options that are available. So first up is known as The Secret History of Hollywood. And you press this and it says, presented as an alternate audio track over the film are excerpts from Adam Roach's 11-part series about Val Lewton from his classic movie podcast, The Secret History of Hollywood, which feature stories about the production of I Walked with a Zombie. So I must admit, I was not aware of this podcast, The Secret History of Hollywood, but my understanding is that this is a sort of assembly um, of this great podcast talking about Hollywood history. And so, what this podcast does well, and assembled in this kind of alternate commentary track way, is what it does so well is it focuses in on um, sort of the history of it's Hollywood history, golden age of Hollywood stuff, talking about things like Selznick and Val Lewton, and then RKO, and the climbing up the ladder to eventually becoming this producer of these essentially the seemingly B movie B grade pictures with these eye-catching titles, and then the rest they could put the film together. In a sense, that was a kind of package process of these films. And Val Lewton, who had already a very literary sensibility, and this track also talks about the great background and sort of bibliographical, or I'm sorry, biographical, and I suppose bibliographical as well, biographical and bibliographical details of Val Lewton growing up, and his entry into the positions in Hollywood, and also connections with sort of Val Lewton's presence, and as I say, Selznick films and Universal horror films, and the sort of the RKO horror machine, etc. That was essentially set up and run by the will of Val Lewton Company, and also the collaborators and the partnerships that he had, Val Lewton did with Jacques Tourneur and others, and also some of the details surrounding the making of this film. In terms of the writing, and where the original concept came from, in terms of the sort of original story and sort of the inspiration of where it came from, and kind of from real life, in a manner of speaking, Inez Wallace, and how it's crafted into the story, and the contributions of Ardo Ray and Stuart Mack, so and others. So and also too the sort of thematic considerations of the film, like the San Sebastian, and also kind of stand-in for Haiti in the Caribbean, and perhaps other Caribbean islands, or islands or island nations there, and then talking about the calypso beat that is associated with not just the sort of the ambiance of some scenes, but also like the appearance of Sir Lancelot, etc., and then also to the vaudou connection, and how this is very skillfully connected, and it's wrapped in the story with regard to the direct plot line of loyalty and relationships, and infidelity and betrayal, and like sexual jealousy, and then romance and life and death, and the like, and how it's also tied to sort of the socio-economic and cultural concerns of Haiti, or San Sebastian, and Vaudou, and the Calypso, etc. So, and also the plantation aspect with regard to societal, say, these sort of externally imposed structures that are the outgrowths of colonialism, etc. So this is a great podcast assembly. And as I say, I wasn't aware of this podcast before, but I'm now a huge fan. So the secret history of Hollywood, and this is not the end of that. We'll see more of this great podcast contribution, but this serves as an alternate soundtrack to the film. It serves also as a kind of running, say, audio history commentary for the film. It's really lovely. So. And again, part of this, the great story of Val Lewton is an understanding of the Hollywood studio history of the time. Now, I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to Hollywood studio history. I mean, I know a little bit, but I'm not at all an expert. My knowledge base is very, very, very shallow. So things like this, the Secret History of Hollywood podcast work is essential. So this is a great treat. So that's one audio option when you watch I Walked with a Zombie. So you can listen to that either on the Blu-ray or on the 4K disc. That's great. So that's one option, the Secret History of Hollywood. Next is what's known as the commentary. So this is the second of the two potential, say, commentary track options. So in a sense, I Walked with a Zombie has two commentary tracks, which is great. And it says that this commentary track, recorded in 2005, so it's a carryover from a previous non-Criterion release, which is also, it's great to still have this, features authors Kim Newman and Stephen Jones. This is so great as well. I love this. Kim Newman and Stephen Jones speak about the film again they touch upon similar aspects that were talked about in the podcast commentary track, and also they talk about it from their own, say, personal perspectives of watching the film, and also their great knowledge, deep knowledge and understanding of Val Lewton in this period, and I Walked with a Zombie. This is so great. Like they talk about the film from the viewpoint, because it's a vast, rich film in terms of how it handles and treats concepts of death, and not just death, but how people who are alive deal with the concept of death. And that can be in the form of, say, religion. That can also be in the form of, say, kind of communal bond or a ritualistic experience. That could also take shape not as a kind of quote unquote foreign presence, but a real innate and real soulfully connected aspect to society and culture, in a very profound way. And that is one of the great strengths, as they point out in the commentary, one of many great strengths of work like I Walked with a Zombie, and that it really it tries to go for that type of sense of not avoiding the complexity of death and reactions to death, which I really love, and I love their comments about it. Also speaking too about I Walked with a Zombie and the way it opens, and how, if you think about the way it's a very perplexing way that the film opens. It's fascinating. It kind of ties into the film's title on the one hand, but then it's so enigmatic and cryptic, especially how you understand where the film goes to its climax. It's really quite, it's kind of a mind-bending film, opening, which I never thought about before until I heard about it. Yeah, that's a great comment. And then they talk too about the appearances of the many of the great actors in the film, like Francis D, etc., and also the use of sound and sort of the Gothic. Maybe they mentioned the oft referred work that is mentioned as Jane Eyre, but Gothic romance in general. This is a Gothic film. It's a Gothic vaudou film, and then talking to the two of them here, great expertise in terms of Val Lewton and experiences at RKO and what he did, and in terms of his writing. He had a real hands-on take in terms of the writing, which is also mentioned too in some of the other supplements, and also too this is a key film in the zombie genre. And so zombie as horror film, or zombie as complex love, romance, drama, or perhaps a bit of both. And maybe in a work like Val Lewton, you're going to get a bit of both here as well, which is really great. And so the complexity, the moral complexities, and sort of our associations are kind of mixed, as I mentioned before. It's not so clear-cut who is the hero, who is the villain, and who are the villains of this piece. We're not quite sure, because everyone has their own motivations, which aren't beyond the realm of, it's not that you can't understand them. You can, which is one of the great aspects, the strengths of the writing. And also Tom Conway, too. Oh my goodness, we have to talk about Tom Conway a little bit later. And also Jacques Tourneur and his career, and also speaking about, again, the context of I Walked with a Zombie and Jacques Tourneur and Val Lewton, a previous association being the great film Cat People. And talking to about some real kind of complex and maybe even controversial themes that the film touches upon, but it doesn't shy away from. So it's a very dense and rich film. So this is the 2005, circa 2005 commentary with Kim Newman and Stephen Jones. This is excellent. Another great thing. I'm so loving the fact that we have these two potential options in terms of audio listening when you watch the film. So this is fantastic. So those are the two commentary tracks for I Walked with a Zombie. And before we go to the supplements section itself, let us turn to the Seventh Victim and those commentary tracks as well, because we have the same setup. I have now gone back to the main hub and then selected the Seventh Victim, and now it takes me to the Seventh Victim specific menu. And then now it says The Secret History of Hollywood and the commentary track. So here we have, again, presented as an alternate audio track over the film, or excerpts from Adam Roach's 11-part series about Val Lewton from the Classic Movie Podcast, The Secret History of Hollywood, which features stories about the production of The Seventh Victim. So again, more of the great Secret History of Hollywood. I'm now a fan, and this time talking about, as it says, stories in connection with the seventh victim, like with regard to this being Mark Robson's first film, how he had been in the Val Lewton troupe in a manner speaking in terms of editing, sort of connections with also the world of, say, Orson Welles and how that came to be, and also too the connections between, say, some of the characters in The Seventh Victim, and maybe some potential connections, shall we say, with cat people. Let me put it that way. In particular, one character in particular that has an interesting connection, and how the handling of the Seventh Victim and cat people is taken over the many years. Maybe the possibility of a kind of shared universe. Let me put it that way. And also too the context of the workings with again Val Lewton and his and kind of the background histories or the making of Hollywood history. Again, Val Lewton had associations with David O. Selznick and also with RKO Pictures, and also, his work with Tourneau, but this film not being a Tourneau-directed film, but ended up being, as I say, a Mark Robson-directed film, and the rest, as they say, is history. So, the Seventh Victim commentary track. This is, I'm sorry, the Secret History of Hollywood commentary track. This is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So this is one place to check out when you're watching The Seventh Victim. So that's one place to go. I'm now a huge fan. I love this, The Secret History of Hollywood. So, but that's not all, because then we have another commentary track option. So again, kind of like two commentary tracks again for The Seventh Victim, like we had with I Walked with a Zombie. And also this one for Seventh Victim is this commentary track, recorded in 2005, features film historian Steve Haberman, which is great, absolutely great. I love this. This one talks about talking about sort of the way this the script had been developed, and then also again with Val Lewton's hand, and then the handling of the title, and written by Charles O'Neill and DeWitt Bodine, and so some information about that as well. And there's some film noir aspects to it. There's also a scene involving. There's a very famous scene that takes place in the shower. Let me put it that way. It's so memorable, and one cannot help but. And I think this is also mentioned in other places too. There's it happened a little bit later in a film from 1960 called Psycho. Famous shower scenes in films, and this one, The Seventh Victim, is so famous, so iconic in the context of the film, and it's so shocking, and it's quite startling. So there's that being said. I should have one point, and this is true, I think, generally of some of the supplements, but with this commentary track, please be wary that there is a spoiler that is given with regard to a separate film called Cat People. The commentary track here assumes that you have seen Cat People. So if you haven't seen Cat People, just be wary of the commentary track. Not everyone, but just one part in particular, because a spoiler in Cat People is kind of crucial in understanding what the connection might be between Cat People and The Seventh Victim. So just keep that in mind. So that might be also my strong endorsement to watch Cat People as well. This is, if you like I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim, you will love Cat People. So please check that out, and watch as many of the Val Lewton produced films as you can. But in any event, just to keep that in mind when you listen to the commentary track. But it's so great. So please check out the film with the commentary track if you can. It's wonderful. So again, we are it's wonderful. Criterion is providing not just one but two sort of audio tracks to guide us and to provide Hollywood history, delights and treats and insights, as well as insights into the film. So those are the commentary tracks associated with the Criterion release of I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim. And again, you can listen to the commentary tracks or the audio tracks while watching the films either on the 4K disc or the Blu-ray disc. Let us continue now with comments about the other supplements included with this great Criterion release. So I'm going to go back to the main menu of the Blu-ray of this release. And again, we can, at the main menu, we can select either I Walked with a Zombie or The Seventh Victim. But in fact, in addition to one of those two selections, we have a third selection on the Blu-ray, which is called Supplements. We go there. This is not on the 4K, only on the Blu-ray. We go there, and you press it, and we actually have a number of supplements to welcome us here that can be said to be comprehensive or touching upon both films, or Val Lewton, Mark Robeson, and Turner, etc. So this is great. So they're sort of comprehensive supplements. The first one is called Imogen Sarah Smith on Val Lewton. And you press this and it says, in this interview conducted by the Criterion Collection in 2024, author Imogen Sarah Smith explores the production of I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim. So this is approximately 47 minutes. So this is great. Imogen Sarah Smith is a writer, a scholar, a cinema historian, an expert in many, many fields of cinema. And included in that is Val Lewton and this period of Hollywood cinema from the 1940s, including, of course, I Walked with a Zombie and The Seventh Victim. So this is great. This is really great. Deliver Us from Evil, I think, is the subtitle. And talking about the background of these films and Lewton in terms of RKO horror films as a kind of maybe inspired by or trying to compete with Universal horror films, but doing their own thing. It would be said to be the RKO horror films, as particularly the Val Lewton horror films. Horror films could be said also to be in many ways in terms of tenor and tone and atmosphere. Maybe there's some similarities with the great Universal horror films from the 1930s and 40s and onwards. But and I'm a big fan of Universal horror, but they also have this a sort of unsettling ambiguity, I think, as Imogen Sarah Smith describes it. Sort of the outsiders explorations as well. So this is great. And then she also speaks too about the working relationship between Tourneur, Jacques Tourneur, and Val Lewton, and also some in terms of the Tourneur directorial approach and aesthetic, which seemed also to be a nice fit with Val Lewton's own sensibilities, as I say, as an artist, as a writer, and as a producer. And speaking to about an earlier work that's referred to again, the Tourneur Val Lewton collaboration, that being Cat People, and then the atmosphere. One of the great strengths of I Walked with a Zombie and Seventh Victim and Cat People, and others. Well, I guess in terms of the Tourneur films in particular, I Walked with a Zombie and Cat People. Although you get this, of course, in other non-Tourneur Val Lewton films, the atmosphere. And the lighting, it's really fantastic. And also too, with I Walked with a Zombie, you can say that there's in some considerations in terms of representations, race represented, and the considerations of socioeconomic, political considerations, both on a kind of macro scale. And speaking of I Walked with the Zombies, the specific considerations of the participation of Sir Lancelot and Darby Jones and the reference to misery, etc. And kind of a wide scope and scale of this. So this is really great in terms of the part of her conversation, Imogen Sarah Smith's conversation about directed towards I Walked with a Zombie. And then she also turns her attention to discussions of The Seventh Victim, talking about the New York City setting and speaking about there's a detail I didn't realize about how it was some parts of it were reworkings of the set from the Orson Welles film, The Magnificent Ambersons, which I thought was a really cool. I mean, there are some connections between the world of Val Lewton and RKO and Orson Welles. But that's really cool. I didn't realize that. There's also, too, in terms of Imogen Sarah Smith's comments, a focus on what she calls focus on female spaces and relationships between women. This has a particular focus in, one can say it exists also in Why I Walked with a Zombie, but also with, I think, very, quite prominently, relatively speaking, in the work The Seventh Victim. and also psychoanalysis is on display. Film noir aspects are on display. Also, quite a heavy emphasis on death, a very heavy emphasis on death. So, and other aspects of this, and the like. So, this is a great conversation. So informative. Every time Imogen Sarah Smith say those interviews or video essays or written essays come up, or commentary tracks, whatever the case may be, come up, it's definitely worth checking out. So filled with information and knowledge, and so insightful, and well spoken, well presented. Fantastic. So this is Imogen Sarah Smith on Val Lewton. It was approximately, what did I say? Approximately 47 minutes. Fantastic. So really great. Next we have, oops, sorry about that. Next we have Shadows in the Dark, the Val Lewton Legacy. And what it says here is, this 2005 documentary about producer Val Lewton's legacy, narrated by James Cromwell, features William Friedkin, Steve Jones, Steve Haberman, Joe Dante, Guillermo del Toro, Kim Newman, Val E. Lewton, Drew Casper, Rick Jewell, Harlan Ellison, Ramsey Campbell, George A. Romero, John Landis, Mick Garris, Richard Matheson, Robert Wise, and Sarah Karloff. That's really cool. Mick Garris. Oh, by the way, just a completely off topic, but I went to Disneyland in California a couple months ago with my family, and I saw Mick Garris there. At least it looked like Mick Garris. I mean, yeah, it looked exactly like Mick Garris. I think it was I couldn't approach him, but yeah, it was yeah, Mick Garris at Disneyland. But I'm sorry, that's a minor. But in any event, a 2005 documentary about Val Lewton. This is a great one. 53 minutes, I think. That's my count. And so, again, more information about Val Lewton. What a figure he is. So important in the world of cinema. So creative, fascinating. And again, a producer wearing many hats. And the creative process and the writing process, has a literary background in terms of his own writings, and also his own sensibilities in terms of what he wanted from the writing process itself. And speaking a bit too about his own background and legacy, and his work as a novelist as well, and then leading into his early career working with David O. Selznick, and talking to about his role, for instance, in the David O. Selznick produced film, a very famous film called Gone with the Wind. And an interesting anecdote about the Battle of Atlanta. And then too, with regard to when Val Lewton made his turn to RKO and then RKO horror films, as again a kind of rival house to Universal in that regard, because they were very popular films at Universal. And then, but from Val Lewton and RKO's perspective, he was working with low budgets, he was working with tight schedules, and he had these collaborators though that he relied upon, and they were great collaborations in terms of the directors that he worked with, like Mark Robeson, and then Jacques Tourneur, etc. And there was also the catchy title. There was a title, and then the story could be developed around that, which is an interesting. I mean, it's fascinating. So you have, but then what comes out of that becomes this really almost unsuspectingly just fascinating turn of events, as a manner of speaking. So you have a film like Cat People, but it has a real heavy element of psychology about it, which is great. And I Walk for the Zombie, but then with the Vaudou. And the gothic horror romance vibe, and then other films, Isle of the Dead, Leopard Man, Seventh Victim. And two, speaking about working with his partners here, such as Mark Robeson, in terms of the editing and later directing, and he felt he had a certain loyalty to the people that he worked closely with, and so ultimately, for instance, Robeson's directorial debut under Val Lewton came with The Seventh Victim as sort of as a, among other things, as a sign of loyalty and friendship. And also Val Lewton working with other films. They aren't included in the Criterion releases here, but working with other films. And there's a run of Val Lewton produced films that involve Boris Karloff, and that forms a really great part of Boris Karloff's illustrious career, as well as Val Lewton's illustrious career. Bedlam, etc. So this is really great. Anyone who's interested in a kind of further introduction into the world of Val Lewton, this is the place to go. And there are some great places to go with regard to other Val Lewton films, but focus on I Walked with a Zombie and Seventh Victims. 53 minutes, so please check this one out if you can. Shadows in the Dark. Next is The Origins of the Zombie from Haiti to the U.S. This is really fascinating. This is approximately 13 minutes, and it says, and I quote, "These excerpts from the PBS Digital Studios series Monstrum explore the West African and Haitian origins of voodoo and zombification. The show is presented by Dr. Emily Zarka, whose research explores the roles of desire and knowledge dissemination in portrayals of undead characters produced during the 18th and 19th centuries. The entire Monstrum series can be viewed at pbs.org. This is my first time watching this episode or this series. It's very well produced, very well presented, very clever in terms of its visuals, and very easy to follow along. And the content is so fascinating, in terms of like voodoo, even differences between voodoo and vodou. I'm not an expert, so I'm learning so many things about this too, and also in the context of Haiti and Haitian culture, tibonage or gros in terms of concepts and considerations of the soul and the afterlife. And also to the context in connection with how this may have certain implications or ramifications or connections with social or cultural or even a political history, like slavery, the slave trade, and also colonialism. And perhaps these are maybe reactions to, or maybe some kind of cultural-based outgrowths in respect of those sorts of historical currents that were also happening as well. So. And examples of this go from works like White Zombie, also Wade Davison's Serpent and the Rainbow, which is another great reference, and then I Walked with a Zombie as well. So this is really great. This is approximately 13 minutes. Very fascinating. Maybe in particular, it's associated quite closely with a watch of I Walked with a Zombie more than The Seventh Victim, but that doesn't take away from its greatness. I mean, it's fantastic, utterly fascinating from Dr. Zarka. So, Origins of the Zombie from Haiti to the U.S. This is approximately 13 minutes. Really excellent. Next is Gene Brooks and Tom Conway. Oh, this is wonderful. These audio excerpts, and I quote, from Adam Roche's 11-part series about Val Lewton from his classic movie podcast, The Secret History of Hollywood, take a fascinating look at the lives of actors Gene Brooks, Jacqueline in The Seventh Victim, and Tom Conway, Paul Holland in I Walked with a Zombie, and Dr. Louis Judd in The Seventh Victim and Cat People. All right, so the first one is a sort of a discussion on Gene Brooks. This is approximately 53 minutes, and the second one on Tom Conway is approximately 1 hour and 9 minutes. I was already a fan of The Secret History of the Hollywood podcast. Again, it's my first time listening to that or being exposed to it upon this Criterion Collection release, but it's made me a fan. And these parts about focusing primarily on Gene Brooks for the first one, close to an hour, and then with Tom Conway on the other one, a little bit over an hour. These are so great. Something about the voice as well, the delivery. It's so welcoming. I'm fascinated by this. Gene Brooks, what a life, my goodness, and Tom Conway, my goodness, what a life, what lives they led. In terms of Gene Brooks's own career and her professional life and also her personal life, Erich von Stroheim, especially, and her working relationship and personal relationship with Erich von Stroheim early on in her career. And things about her roles leading up to her name, and then becoming Gene Brooks, and also her relationship with Richard Brooks, and also her appearance in films like Seventh Victim. And I must say, the Gene Brooks in The Seventh Victim. This is like the most profoundly indelible image from The Seventh Victim could be that look of Gene Brooks. You get a sort of representation of it here with the facial gesture and the haircut. Oh my goodness, it's like utterly classic. It's amazing. So and this is, and her life has it is a fascinating it is a fascinating life, like legendary. with its share of ups and downs, as we hear. You know, I wasn't so familiar with the life and times of Jean Brooks, but so this became such a learning experience for me. Well done. So that's the first one. And then Tom Conway is the subject of the second one of these. So it's just over an hour. This is also the same thing. Really great, you know, in terms of the connections that he has, his own family life, Thomas Sanders, George Sanders, and where he came from and his early beginnings and his biography, and then leading up to his work with, and he became Tom Conway, and his work on Val Lewton films, and sort of the rivalry that he has with his other very famous brother as well. So, like, this is also such a great learning experience for me. I learned so much about this Tom Conway. He's such a really key figure in the world of Lewton, in particular two films. So really, really wonderful indeed. So I'm a big fan of these. So please check these out if you can. So the one is on Jean Brooks, the other on Tom Conway. Really fascinating. So please do about an hour each. So really great. And then we have the I Walked with a Zombie trailer and the Seventh Victim trailer to round out the supplements. So this is really fantastic in terms of supplements and commentary tracks. I am just over the moon delighted by this. I learned so much. I've become a fan of the podcast that's relied upon, and that is very much an integral part of the supplements. Imogen Sarah Smith has also been Val Lewton biography, documentaries, etc. Oh, this is so great. This is also great. Further understanding, and also the focus on zombie origins. Oh, it's fantastic. So please check this out. This is a great stacked, packed release from Criterion. And so now let us wind down our conversation about this great Criterion release of I Walked with a Zombie, The Seventh Victim, these two films produced by Val Lewton and Turner and Robson's directed films. So let's go to the aspects of the physical media packaging. It's one of these things where it's in the plastic case. There are two discs. So the one 4K UHD disc and one Blu-ray disc, and they're stacked like this. And you can see, excuse me, they look like that. The contours of the disc, they look, I think to my eyes, they look the same in terms of color usage. Sorry about that. This I happen to have the 4K disc in the casing, and I'm holding in my hands the Blu-ray disc. So it looks the same to me in terms of color scheme, and I can't discern any artwork in the inner sleeve of this. So, and very minor detail. I don't mind that too much, but that's what the discs look like. This out part on the left-hand side here would be where the booklet goes. We'll talk about the booklet in just a second, but look at this artwork, and I love the dual artwork design here. I Walked with a Zombie on this side, of course, and then on this side, The Seventh Victim. Very, very cool images, which are then carried over into the great booklet here, which we'll talk about as well. Just very quickly in terms of art, production credits: art director Sarah Beebe, Eric Skillman; illustration Catherine Lamb, designer Eric Skillman. This is great. What great illustrations. I love these. Really lovely designs, very moody and gothic. Lovely designs. And then we have this part, which is the staple booklet. Lovely. I'm sorry. Should say too that that's what it looks like on the back here. The staple booklet makes its return here. I love this, and it also flips to reflect both films. So the side that has, or the part that is focusing on I Walked with a Zombie, you have some sections here about the film, a breakdown on the film and cast and crew. And then Chris Fujiwara's essay, Better Doctors, then continues on, which is, I could say it's it's about Val Lewton, but it's I Walked with a Zombie focused. It's fantastic. So please check out that essay after you've watched I Walked with a Zombie. That's my suggestion. But I'll flip it and turn it this way, and we'll go to the part that's about the seventh victim. Great illustration once again. You open to the first page, and it has information about the seventh victim. On this side, you have an image of the great Kim Hunter. Really lovely. And then when you turn to the next page, you'll have an essay by Lucy Sante, The Inner Darkness, which is right here. Really great. Great essay. Again, it's the seventh victim focused. So my strong recommendation is to watch the film first, and then you can read the great essay here, both of them, regarding both films respectively. So I'm going to put it on the side that's reflecting I Walked with a Zombie right here. I'm going to put it like so. Like that. Although you can have your choice, of course, if you choose to put it with the seventh victim side facing up, you know, you're free to do so. But I'm just going to put it here. I Walked with a Zombie, like so. So there we go. Oh gosh, that is the Criterion 4K UHD and Blu-ray release of I Walked with a Zombie, The Seventh Victim. These two films produced by VAL LEWTON. My goodness, more VAL LEWTON in the Criterion Collection. That's really great. To join the likes of Cat People, which is also a strong recommendation. Check this out. If you like these two films, you'll love this earlier Blu-ray. It's spine number 833. Yes. So you got to check this out. This is wonderful. But in any event, this is great stuff. So please check it out if you can. Highly recommend it. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies, such as I Walked with a Zombie, such as The Seventh Victim, such as other films directed by Turner Robson, produced by VAL LEWTON, such as other films in the Criterion Collection, and beyond. And so until we see each other again, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.